The very fabric of Orun, the realm of divine potential, shimmered. It was not yet a place of defined stars or celestial bodies, but a boundless expanse of luminous mist, raw cosmic energies coiling and uncoiling like nascent serpents of light. At its heart, an intention pulsed, silent, unseen, yet utterly absolute. Olodumare, the supreme source, willed a new world into the possibility of being. Aye. In response to this silent, irresistible call, the Irunmole, 17 of the most potent Orishas, began to coalesce, their individual essences taking on greater definition against the swirling backdrop of Orun. 16 of them were vibrant flares of masculine Aje, Obatala, a pillar of cool white light, already dreaming of perfect form. Ogun, a core of molten iron, thrumming with the urge to strike and shape. Shango, a barely contained storm of crackling crimson energy, impatient for release. Their combined power was a chorus of thunderous potential, a symphony of force ready to be unleashed. And then there was Oshun, the 17th. Her light was different. It did not blaze or crackle. It flowed like liquid gold, warm and vital. Her essence eddied and pulled, a gentle current within the boisterous ocean of her brother's might. While they resonated with the call to make, Oshun felt an ecstatic, loving harmony with the call to nurture into being. Her spirit already danced with visions of interconnected life, flowing waters, vibrant colors, and harmonious ecosystems, a world breathing with an inherent, loving consciousness. She heard the intricate, whispered song of true creation, a melody the others, in their eagerness, seemed deaf to. This profound connection was both her gift and her burden, for with the vision of harmonious life came its shadow, a chilling premonition that touched the warmth of her spirit whenever she saw the raw, untempered energies of her brothers gather. An ancient sorrow, not entirely her own, echoed within her, a whisper from those great mothers of power, the Iyami Aje, whose collective memory resonated in her deepest core. They murmured of past cycles, of worlds stillborn from arrogance, of the sacred, indispensable nature of the feminine in the grand weave of existence. This foresight, this weight of knowing, was a constant presence at the edge of her luminous joy. Near her, unassuming amidst the divine radiance, rested a simple, godlike shaped calabash. It was so closed, seemingly empty, yet if one possessed the senses to perceive the deepest currents of Aje, one might have felt the faintest, almost imperceptible thrum from within, a quiet potential cradled in humble form. A yearning filled Oshun, a profound desire to see the loving, harmonious vision she held manifest, to pour her essence into the act of co-creation authentically. An ache stirred within her at the thought of a fractured, loveless, or stillborn world, a fate she felt she must strive with all her being to prevent. Her spirit longed to weave her golden essence, her inherent sweetness, into the very foundations of this new world, ensuring it was born from a true union of all divine wisdoms. As the 16 male Orishas began to stare with boisterous intent, their energies already reaching out to the swirling chaos of Aje below, Oshun remained a moment still, a pool of liquid gold, light holding within its depths both the dream of a perfect dawn and the shadow of a potential twilight. The song of creation was clear to her, but she sensed, with a tremor of foreboding, that she might be the only one, for now, who truly heard all its notes. A wave of divine energy, potent and undeniable, pulsed from Olodumare, sweeping through Orun and towards the swelling chaos of Aje. The raw matter of the world to be shifted, coalesced slightly, a canvas now palpably awaiting the first strokes of its creators. The time for pure intention was over. The divine project had begun. The male Orishas stirred, their vast energies crackling with anticipation. Obatala's cool light intensified as he envisioned skeletal continents. Ogun's molten core pulsed hotter, his hands eager to hammer forth mountains. Shango's storm essence gathered, ready to carve oceans with lightning. Their voices rose, a chorus of ambitious plans, each focusing on mighty, singular acts of dominance over the unformed. Oshun, her golden light a steady, warm current amidst their more explosive energies, felt the call to contribute, not just as an afterthought, but as a foundational voice. Driven by an encompassing love for the world yearning to be born, she moved gracefully into their burgeoning council. Her voice, when she spoke, was not loud, but it carried the clear, melodious resonance of flowing water, of life's intrinsic harmony. "My brothers," she began, her gaze sweeping over their eager, powerful forms. "As we touch Aye, let us remember that life is a weave, not merely a construction. The sweetest waters must flow from the very inception, as a lifeblood, connecting all that we make. Let us infuse our creation not only with might, but with the breath of love, with the joy of interconnectedness, so that Aye may not just exist, but sing." She gestured subtly towards the simple calabash at her side, from which an almost imperceptible warmth seemed to emanate. A brief, almost uncomfortable silence followed her words. Ogun was the first to break it, his voice a rough growl like stone grinding on iron. "Sweet waters and songs, an admirable sentiment, Oshun. But we have an emptiness to fill, a chaos to tame. We need foundations of rock and fire, not gentle weavings." He struck the ground with an imaginary hammer. Shango loosed a short, sharp crackle of lightning, his laughter booming. "The world will sing when it feels the lash of my storms and the heat of my fire. It will be born of thunder, little sister, not whispers of dew." He puffed his chest, his form radiating immense untamed power. Obatala the elder raised a hand, his white light calming the others, yet his smile, when he turned it to Oshun, was tinged with a distant, paternalistic indulgence. "Your wisdom is unique, Oshun, and the beauty you envision will indeed grace Aye. But first, the essential framework. The bones must be set, the great landmasses established by proven hands and ancient ordered design. Once the heavy labor is done, once the world has structure and form, then your gentle arts will find their purpose. Then the sweet waters may adorn the valleys we carve." He then turned back to the others, unrolling a shimmering mental blueprint, their master plan. It was a breathtaking display of divine architecture, continents precisely delineated, mountain ranges thrusting skywards, oceans vast and deep. It was a testament to their individual powers, a map of conquest over the void. But as Oshun listened, her heart grew heavy. The plan was all sharp edges and grand, isolated gestures. There was no mention of the flowing connections she had spoken of, no space for the gentle infusion of life's breath from the beginning. Her foundational wisdom had been relegated to mere decoration, a future embellishment upon a body already formed, and she feared, already flawed. This was their definitive stance, their united front of exclusion. The air in Orun grew colder around her. A profound sorrow as deep and vast as the unformed Aye itself settled upon Oshun. The haunting premonition of a barren world, the whispers of the Iyami Aje, grew stronger, more insistent. Direct confrontation, she knew with a certainty that chilled her golden light, would be futile now. Their pride was a fortress, their combined vision a battering ram aimed at creation. To challenge it head-on would be to waste her precious Aje, to shatter her essence against their unyielding will. Her gaze fell upon the simple calabash by her side. The almost imperceptible thrum from within seemed to quicken, to respond to her inner turmoil. A new, steely resolve began to overlay her sorrow. If they would not listen to the song of creation, then they would have to learn its truth through the discord of their own making. This was her path, then. A path of strategic patience, a veiled power. It was a sacrifice of her immediate desire to shape a loving world from its first breath, a sacrifice of her voice in their council. She would step back, her radiance dimming slightly to their perception, becoming an observer, not a passive one. The small, unassuming bird within the calabash, an entity of twilight and dawn known only to her deepest consciousness, would be her emissary. It would carry not her anger, but the subtle, persistent truth of consequence. Through it, she would watch, and perhaps, just perhaps, ensure that even in their destructive arrogance, the seeds of their eventual understanding might find the smallest crack in which to sprout. Her love for Aje demanded this difficult, hidden vigilance. The mystery of her true power would remain her shield, and her sorrow, her secret strength. As the male Orishas, with renewed boisterous confidence in their exclusive plan, turned their full might towards the waiting chaos of Aje, Oshun too turned inward, her resolve hardening like a diamond within her flowing golden light. The first discordant notes of their creation were about to sound, and she would be ready to listen for the echo of their inevitable unraveling. With Oshun's gentle offering dismissed and their own grand, exclusive master plan affirmed, the 16 male Orishas turned their combined might upon the unformed canvas of Aje. A deafening cacophony erupted in Orun as their powers, magnificent yet unharmonized, slammed into the nascent world. Obatala, his white light blazing with focused intent, commanded mountains to rise. They surged upwards, colossal and stark, their peaks scraping the ethereal sky of Orun. But they were sterile. They sloped like bleached bone, devoid of the merest hint of soil or the promise of green. No water trickled from their height. They were monuments to form without life. Ogun, with bellows of raw, percussive energy, hammered forth the landmasses. Continents took shape under his relentless fiery blows, but the process was violent, uncontrolled. Where he struck, chasms of molten rock appeared, spewing acrid smoke that choked the nascent atmosphere. The land he forged was jagged and unstable, its edges sharp as shattered iron, resonating with a brutal, metallic clang. Shango, reveling in his elemental fury, unleashed his storms. Lightning, brilliant and terrible, tore across the void, carving what he declared would be mighty riverbeds and vast oceans. But his tempests were dry, scorching winds that carried no life-giving moisture, only the shriek of their passage. The canyons he gouged remained empty, echoing with the hollow thunder of his power. From her place of veiled observation, Oshun watched, and a profound ache settled within her golden essence. Each act of creation, so full of force and spectacle, was a discordant note in the true song of Aje. She saw the sterility of Obatala's perfect mountains, the volatile instability of Ogun's forged earth, the barren fury of Shango's storms. This was not birth. It was a violation. Her love for the potential of Aje deepened into a pained empathy for its suffering under this onslaught. As the first jarring landscapes of their flawed creation began to solidify, Oshun drew her gaze inward, towards the simple calabash that rested beside her. The faint thrumming within intensified, and with a soft, almost inaudible sigh from Oshun, a sigh that was both sorrow and resolve, the calabash lid creaked open a hair's breadth. From within, a creature of breathtaking, impossible delicacy emerged, No larger than Oshun's thumb, it was the bird of twilight and dawn, its plumage shimmering with colors unseen in Orun, its eyes like tiny, knowing stars. This was no mere animal, it was an extension of Oshun's Aje, a vessel of her subtle power. Its true nature a profound mystery even to most of the Orishas. With a silent command from Oshun, a sacrificial whisper of her own vital energy infusing its tiny form, the bird took flight. It did not challenge the male Orishas directly. Instead, it became a flicker in the cosmic periphery, an unseen weaver of consequence. Where Obatala raised a particularly lifeless peak, the bird might pass, and days later, a hairline fracture impossibly deep would appear, making the mountain groan. Where Ogun laid a vast sheet of new iron, the bird might brush its wing and a strange premature rust, an unnatural decay would begin to bloom, baffling the forger. When Shango's lightning struck, the bird, from an immense distance, might sing a single, piercing note, and the resulting thunder would carry an echo of profound emptiness, a hollowness that even Shango, in his arrogance, might fleetingly perceive with unease. These were not acts of destruction, but of revelation, tiny, inexplicable flaws that spotlighted the inherent imbalance of their work. The mystery of these persistent, untraceable glitches began to gnaw at the edges of the male Orisha's confidence, an unseen challenge to their absolute control. The male Orishas, witnessing these minor but persistent anomalies, redoubled their efforts, attributing the flaws to the stubbornness of primordial chaos rather than their own methods. Their power became more forceful, their actions more sweeping. Obatala, seeing a crack in his pristine mountain range, might glance towards Oshun, who sat in a quiet contemplation. "You see, Oshun," he might call out, his voice carrying over the din, a faint, indulgent smile playing on his lips. "The foundational work is indeed strenuous and fraught with unseen challenges, but we persevere. Soon, these rugged forms will be ready for your gentle refinements." His words, though perhaps intended to sound inclusive, now carried the clear, sharp edge of their solidified position. Her role was fixed in their minds, her foundational wisdom deemed irrelevant to their grand, unfolding disaster. The weight of their collective dismissal felt heavier now, the path ahead for true creation visibly lengthening. The stakes were now undeniably higher. The world was not just being formed, it was being actively misformed. Each act of creation by the male Orishas was a deeper wound upon Aje. Each subtle intervention by Oshun's bird was a whispered testament to their blindness. The cost of their eventual enlightenment, Oshun knew with a deepening ache of sacrificial love, would rather be far greater than any of them yet imagined. Time in Orun was not measured in days, but in the slow, agonizing decay of Aje. The world below was no longer merely flawed or disharmonious, it was actively dying. Obatala's once gleaming white mountains were now leprous with unexplained corrosion, crumbling into sterile dust that choked the void. Ogun's iron continents, forged with such violent pride, had twisted into grotesque, rustling skeletons, sharp edges jutting from a landscape that bled metallic poisons. Shango's relentless, rainless storms had scored away any hint of potential fertility, leaving behind vast, echoing canyons filled with an atmosphere thick with the smell of ozone and despair. The nascent light of Aje was dimming, its song a strangled whimper on the verge of silence. The male Orishas themselves were diminished, their divine energies frayed and sputtering. Their initial arrogance had given way to a grim, bewildered desperation, then to a creeping lethargy as every monumental effort to correct their course only hastened the unraveling. They moved like phantoms through the ruins of their ambition, their power a curse rather than a gift. Oshun watched, and the ache in her golden essence became a constant burning throb. The premonitions that had haunted her, the whispers of the Iyami Aje, were now a devastating reality. Her subtle interventions through the bird of twilight and dawn had exposed flaws, yes, had planted seeds of doubt, but they had not pierced the thick hide of her brother's collective ego swiftly enough to save Aye from this precipice. The mystery of Olodumare's continued silence felt like an immense weight pressing down on her spirit. Was this utter devastation truly part of a grander design, or had the capacity for divine error exceeded even cosmic foresight? Her love for the unformed world, for the idea of Aye, was a searing pain. The sacrificial burden of her strategic patience now felt almost unbearable. She saw her brothers not as haughty deities, but as lost children, their magnificent power turned to destructive folly, their spirits as broken as the world they had wrought. A new, chilling realization settled within her. Her initial plan, to allow natural consequences to be their sole teacher, had underestimated the depth of their blindness, the stubbornness of their ingrained pride. They were beyond the point of independent enlightenment. Left to their own devices now, they would simply fade into the dust of their failed creation, and Aye would be lost forever. The lesson was ripe, hanging like a rotten fruit, but they were too weakened and spiritually starved to reach for it. A different kind of Aje began to stir within Oshun, overriding her grief. It was the fierce, indomitable will of the Great Mothers, the unwavering love of the source that refuses to let life be extinguished. It was a compassionate fire, not just for the dying world, but for these fallen Orishas. She would not let them or Aye perish in this wasteland of their making. The path forward was no longer one of merely highlighting flaws. A more direct, though still artfully veiled, intervention was now required. The next sacrifice demanded of her was to share the layer of her chosen anonymity, to risk a more tangible influence on their trajectory. Her power must now actively weave the thread that would lead them, not to her directly yet, but to the one voice of truth they might still be compelled to hear. She called the bird of twilight and dawn. It fluttered weakly from the now almost inert calabash, its shimmering plumage dulled, its stellar eyes clouded with the reflection of Aye's despair. Oshun gently cupped it in her hands, her own golden light flowing into it, a transfusion of her will, her love, her remaining hope. This act was a further sacrifice, a giving of her precious essence to this fragile emissary. "Little singer of secrets," she whispered, her voice imbued with a new, resonant authority that mirrored the ancient chorus of the Iyami Aje. "Your flight is not yet done. The great ones are lost in the shadow of their own making. Their ears are deaf to the song of truth, their eyes blind to the path. You must now be the unseen current that draws their broken vessels towards the shores of wisdom. Seek Irunmole. Let your passage be a trail of undeniable omens, a whisper of Ifa's gravity that even their despair cannot ignore. Guide them to his grove. The time for their reckoning with truth is at hand, and it is through his voice they must first hear it." The bird, revitalized by her Aje, met her gaze with a spark of renewed understanding. It absorbed her intentions, the intricate mystery of its new mission. With a final, almost silent beat of its wings, it launched itself into the oppressive gloom of Orun, a tiny, determined spark of Oshun's strategic power aimed at the heart of her brother's despair, steering them towards the pivotal confrontation that might yet save them all. Oshun watched it go, her own light a steady, unwavering beacon in the encroaching darkness. Her decision made, she had taken charge. not of creation itself yet, but of the narrative of its potential salvation. An unseen force, a desperate, almost instinctual yearning for an answer beyond their own ruined capacities, drew the broken male Orishas through the corpse world of Aje. It was the subtle, insistent guidance of Oshun's bird of twilight and dawn, now a nearly invisible shimmer of weary light, leading them through the wastelands of their own making. Each vista of cracked earth, each monument of their folly, Obatala's crumbling white cities, Ogun's rusted war forges, Shango's silent, lightning-scarred peaks, was a station on their path of suffering, born of their colossal pride. Their divine Aje was all but extinguished, their spirits hallowed by the sheer scale of their failure. They arrived, finally, at a place that seemed to exist outside the general desolation, Irunmole's sacred grove. Ancient skeletal trees, which nonetheless hummed with an unyielding primordial power, formed a somber circle. The air here was thin, sharp, and pregnant with unspoken truths. It was a place where illusions died and the bones of reality were laid bare. Irunmole, Orisha of wisdom, awaited them. His eyes, like deep, still pools reflecting millennia, held no condemnation, only an immense, sorrowful understanding. He had seen their approach, perhaps felt the subtle psychic trail left by Oshun's bird. Without a word, he cast the sacred palm nut, the Ikin Ifa, upon the divining tray. The silence in the grove was absolute, broken only by the dry whisper of the nuts as they scattered. The pattern that formed was stark, undeniable. Oshe Otura. A profound sigh, like the rustling of ancient leaves, passed through Irunmole. His voice, when he spoke, resonated not with his own authority, but with the immutable power of Ifa, the voice of Olodumare itself. "The mystery of Aje's undoing is no mystery to Ifa," he intoned, his gaze sweeping over their bowed heads. "The world weeps, Orishas, because its heart was never allowed to beat. You sought to build with rock and fire, with storm and unyielding iron, but you cast aside the sweet waters, the very essence of life. You, in your great councils and grand designs, dismissed the 17th, Oshun, whose Aje is the cool, binding nectar that allows creation to cohere and sing." He continued, each word a divine judgment. "Ifa says in Osei Utura that when the male Orishas excluded the sole female divinity from their works, their endeavors were doomed to fail. Olodumare sent 17 Irunmole to bring order to the world, Oshun among them, her presence indispensable. Without her, your structures are but dust, your energies a hollow echo. For this transgression against cosmic balance, for this disrespect of the sacred feminine, Aje perishes." The words of Ifa, delivered through Irunmole, were not a rebuke they could contest, nor a theory they could dismiss. It was the voice of cosmic law, the ultimate truth. A collective shudder ran through the assembled Orishas. It was the sound of their last vestiges of pride shattering like brittle clay. Shango's fiery spirit seemed to gutter and die, leaving only ashes of remorse. Ogun's mighty shoulders slumped, his cracked iron tools falling from his lifeless hands. Obatala, the architect of their flawed vision, covered his face, a dry, racking sob escaping him. This was their final, skin-of-their-teeth moment. The point of utter annihilation of their old selves. The sacrifice was total. Their divine arrogance, their belief in their self-sufficiency, their dismissal of the feminine, all of it was consumed in the fire of Ifa's truth. Slowly, painfully, Obatala looked up, his eyes, once blazing with certainty, now reflecting only the vast emptiness of their failure. What must we do, Orunmila? His voice was a hoarse whisper. Orunmila's gaze was unwavering. If it is clear, you must find Oshun. You must prostrate yourselves before her. Your spirits bare, your remorse a true offering. You must confess your folly, your blindness, your transgression. You must implore her, with all that remains of your broken divinity, to forgive and to weave anew what you have unraveled. Her Aje, her love, her willingness is the world's only fragile hope. Their decision was unspoken but unanimous, a shared current of profound, agonizing humility. They would go, they would find Oshun, they would beg. As this monumental decision rippled through the spiritual fabric of Orun, Oshun, in her distant, sorrowful vigil, felt it. She felt the shattering of their pride, the dawning of their unbearable truth, the first tremulous reach of their genuine repentance. Her bird of twilight and dawn, having guided them to Orunmila's grove and witnessed the pronouncement, returned to her, not exhausted now, but carrying a faint new shimmer, the reflected light of that dawning humility. And in that moment, as she perceived their nascent, desperate journey towards her, Oshun experienced her own profound revelation. Her strategic patience, her veiled influence, the subtle workings of mystery through her bird and her connection to Iyami Aje, these had been but the agonizingly necessary tilling of barren soil. Now the ground was broken, now it was ready for the seed. She realized her deepest power was not merely in enduring, in guiding or revealing flaws. It was in the boundless, active and sacrificial capacity to create and recreate out of pure love. The whispers of the Iyami Aje within her became a surging chorus. The weaver must now weave. The wellspring must now flow. The mystery of her full potential was not just to be a balancing force, but the very heart of regenerative power. Her decision coalesced, clear and radiant as a new dawn. The sacrifice now would be the ultimate one, to pour forth her entire divine essence, her Aje, her very being, into the dead husk of Aye and coax it back to vibrant life. This was what she needed, not their apology for her own sake, but their genuine brokenness and desperate readiness to receive the true gift of creation, a gift only she could now give. This was the moment she had endured so much to reach. Her love for the cosmos, for her fallen brothers, for the dream of Aye surged, eclipsing all sorrow. Her eyes, which she had reflected the world's despair, now began to glow with an incandescent golden light. The simple calabash beside her pulsed with warmth, ready to release not just a bird, but the promise of worlds. Oshun rose, no longer a figure of veiled sorrow, but a column of serene, indomitable, and loving power. She was ready. The final act of creation awaited its true architect. The male Orishas, humbled and stripped bare of their former arrogance, finally reached Oshun. They had journeyed through the graveyard of their ambitions, each ruin a testament to their folly. Now, before her serene, sorrowful radiance, they prostrated themselves, their once mighty forms trembling, their voices choked with the dust of their remorse and the unbearable weight of their transgression. Obatala, no longer the proud architect but a broken supplicant, managed to utter their collective plea, a desperate prayer for forgiveness and for the world's last chance. Oshun listened, her golden eyes holding an ocean of ancient sorrow, but also an indomitable spark of love. She had made a decision. The time for veiled power and strategic mystery was over. Now was the time for the ultimate sacrifice, the outpouring of her very essence. She rose, and as she did, the last vestiges of gloom around her receded. A warm, honeyed light began to emanate from her, so potent it felt like the first true dawn Orun had ever witnessed. The simple calabash at her feet pulsed, then gently opened. and the bird of twilight and dawn, now ablaze with revitalized, iridescent light, soared upwards, not as a subtle agent, but as a herald. Its song a cascade of pure liquid notes that shivered through the dead silence of the cosmos. Then Oshun began to dance. It was a dance of profound generative power, each movement sculpting unseen energies, her arms weaving patterns of emergent life, her feet touching the barren astral soil, left shimmering pools of golden dew. She began to sing, her voice no longer a whisper but a resonant symphony that was both ancient and utterly new. It was the song of the Iyami Aje, the song of the great mothers, the song of life's irresistible becoming. And from her very being, from her fingertips, her heart, her flowing tears of compassionate love, the sweet waters erupted. This was not the chaotic flood of Shango's impotent storms, but Omi Adagun, the cool, pure, life-giving waters of origin. They surged forth, a billion sparkling springs becoming mighty, meandering rivers, gentle rains falling upon the parched, cracked skin of Aye. Where these waters touched, life exploded. From the dust, lush grasses and towering trees unfurled, their leaves every shade of vibrant green. Flowers of impossible beauty and fragrance burst into bloom, their colors a testament to Oshun's joyful artistry. The rivers teemed with shimmering fish, the forests with animals of all forms, their calls joining Oshun's song. The air, once toxic and still, now moved with sweet, fragrant breezes, carrying the scent of wet earth and new blossoms. The light of brass and gold infused every particle of the reborn world, making it gleam with an inner radiance. The very act was a profound sacrifice, as Oshun poured her ashe into the thirsty void, yet with every outpouring, she seemed to grow more luminous, more vast. Her power revealed not as a finite resource, but as an inexhaustible wellspring. The ultimate mystery of creation was unfolding before them, life born not of brute force, but of ecstatic, self-giving love. The male Orishas watched, transfixed, their divine forms bathed in her golden light, tears of awe, shame, and dawning comprehension streaming down their faces. They saw not just a world reborn, but the very nature of power redefined. They witnessed the untamed strength of Obatala's forms, now softened and embraced by living soil, the relentless energy of Ogun's iron, now channeled into the veins of mineral-rich earth, the fiery spirit of Shango's lightning, now finding its purpose in life-quickening gentle storms that fed Oshun's rivers. When Oshun's song and dance reached their crescendo, Aye was no longer a wasteland, but a vibrant, thrumming, harmonious cosmos, breathing with life, beauty, and interconnectedness. The great Oshun River, mightiest of all her sweet waters, now flowed from the very place she stood, its currents carrying her life-giving ashe throughout the new world, a symbol of her eternal presence and nurturing power. She stood, serene and radiant, the heart of this reborn existence. The bird, now a magnificent phoenix of pure light, circled above her, its song a hymn to the triumph of life. The male Orishas, their spirits irrevocably changed, approached her, not as equals in their old understanding, but as humble participants in a sacred mystery they had once dismissed. Obatala bowed lowest, his voice thick with emotion. "Great Oshun, weaver of life, heart of Aye, forgive us, teach us, for we see now that without your love, without your ashe, there is no world, no song, no life." The new status quo was established. Ashe or Binrin, the sacred feminine principle, was acknowledged not merely as important, but as fundamental, indispensable to the fabric and flourishing of existence. The covenant of balance was sealed, not by decree, but by the undeniable truth of the world Oshun had birthed. This relationship between the Orishas was reharmonized, their future creations to be born from true collaboration, mutual respect, and an understanding of the sacred dance between masculine and feminine energies. Oshun, her essence forever woven into the rivers, the honey, the gold, the very sweetness of the world, did not reign with dominance, but with the gentle, irresistible power of nurturing love. Her sacrifice had birthed a cosmos. Her love was its breath. The mystery of her being remained profound, but it was now a mystery that invited reverence, participation, and joy. She endured the silence and the ruin, and in her ultimate act of creation, she had returned not just life, but also its deepest meaning to the universe. Aye, at last, could truly sing.